Here with me today, I have NASA astronaut Mike Fossum, who is a veteran of three space flights. Welcome, Mike. Thank you for coming to talk with us. Basically, he's three space flights. Two of them were aboard the space shuttle, and then one more recently was aboard a Soyuz. So he knows what that ride is like, and so he's here to talk to us about that. And actually, today, as of today, is exactly 1 month since you landed. Correct? After 167 days in space.
That's right, 167 days in space. We landed a month ago exactly, and it's great to be in mission control, watching Don and his crew take off and head up to the space station. Don was my backup 6 months ago when we launched, and so we spent a lot of time training around the globe together, and it's really exciting to be in here this morning with his special guests in the viewing room to watch the launch and kind of relive it for me.
And that was an early morning for you, I suppose, huh?
You bet. It's an early day, but that's okay.
All right. Well, let's just talk about that launch experience, if you will. Let's start by what's your day begin? I mean, how is that morning?
Well, your days really get messed up during that time as you're leading up to the launch because for them the launch was it was night when they launched roughly, and I don't know the local time there. It was about 6:20 in the evening, seven about 7:30 or so, 7:20 in the evening. Anyway, so that they're about 12 hours out from Houston, and they so this one wasn't too bad. They didn't have to do that much of a sleep shift, but the days are just busy, and they'll usually will take a nap because the day ends up being when they launch that time of evening, they'll be really busy late into the night, so they'll take a nap before launch, which is a little hard to do, but you are kind of tired from the launch preparations. We go to Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan about 2 weeks before launch to go through the fit checks and final launch preparations. It's also a quarantine period where we're isolated from other people that haven't been screened by doctors to help make sure that we don't launch with a cold or flu or something like that, because that would be really miserable and could affect the mission. So it's a quarantine period. It's also a preparation period, and it all builds up, to the launch day, which really, gets started in earnest about 5 hours before launch. As you're going through some of the things, there's a gathering with, well, as you leave your room, you sign the door, and we saw the video of the guys signing the door as they left this morning. And Don, in his typical way, he has a lot of fun doing this, it's neat to see the history that are on these doors as each person gets to add his signature and the date of the launch to the door, and so the room that you stay in and the door to that room becomes part of the space record, which is kind of a neat thing.
That must be pretty exciting, and just seeing that door. I mean, here we're seeing some footage of that that was taken earlier this morning. But
Well,
being
and,
able to
and you
see some of your other crew member, I mean,
oh,
your colleagues, their names up there.
you bet, you bet. And so is Mickey and the boys were there with them, and your spouses and families are there as part of that. As you're actually signing the door and then walking out for the. There's a ceremonial greeting with a Russian Orthodox priest who gives you a blessing as you head out the door. It's really a special time, and the whole process is just awash in traditions as you walk out of the building playing the music. I don't know what that music is, but it's really cool. And of course, today it was really cold, but the family and friends, your guests that have come to the other side of the globe are there to wave to you. And then finally you get on the buses and you leave the quarantine facility, what we call the Cosmonaut Hotel, and head out toward the launch facility where we go through the final preparations, get in the suits, and we go as part of the suit up. Then there's a pressure check of each suit to verify the integrity and make sure that it's all ready. And this is all part of the process that you go through one after the other. Getting through there, and a little bit of an oddity with this is that it actually takes place in front of a large in a viewing gallery, and so there's family, friends, and sometimes some press that are just a few feet away, watching as we go through this process of inflating the suit to about 40% of regular atmospheric pressure and make sure that it holds tight. And I mean, there's symbolism involved, but it's of course very practical, just to make sure there's no problems. And at this point, they still have time to deal with anything that comes up. And before you leave there, then there is one last opportunity to talk to your families through the glass, and it's a really special time. And once that's done, it's time to walk out. And this is a very historic imagery here of the Russian space program. As the whole crew walks out, the head of the Russian Space Agency, Mr. Popovkin, is there, and so the crew checks in and basically says, "Hey, boss, the crew is prepared and ready to go." And it's really a neat thing. Of course, the family, friends, and members of the press are watching from alongside there, and it's kind of an iconic image.
So
Uh,
here on the bus here, when you do leave and you're heading out that way, what are your thoughts?
well, your thoughts are, all the years of training, and part of you is still coming to grips with the fact that we're finally here. We're finally heading to the launch pad. Of course, 6 months ago, American Don Pettit was my backup, and he went out all the way to the pad with me. You know, and realistically, once you get suited up, you know who's going that day. But as you step up to the rocket, then of course a fueled rocket is different than an inert one that's laying on the ground. It's hissing, breathing. There's this, kind of a fog associated with the cold cryogenic fuel tanks that's rolling off of the vehicle. And it's really neat. As you stand on the steps here, right at the foot of the rocket, you go up about 20 or so steps on this ladder to get to the elevator that takes you to the top. And it's one last pause, waving back at the managers. The family don't go out to the rocket with you, but you're just kind of waving goodbye, and then you get on a very tiny little elevator that takes you up to the top. For me it was striking because the Soyuz rocket is significantly smaller than the space shuttle with which I had the most experience. And I remember the first time I saw the full-up Soyuz, rocket and spacecraft. It's, wow, that really seems different, and of course it is. But it's really good at hauling, people and a few hundred pounds of equipment. It's very efficient for that. But you're in there tight. You're hip to hip, shoulder to shoulder in the capsule, the descent module. As the rocket starts to roar to life, it seems to take a long time as the engines come up to full speed, and everything kicks in, and then the whole way of being on the pad is different than what we're used to, but it's a gentle lift off, and it doesn't have I mean it's fairly smooth. It doesn't have the kind of popping and crackling that we're used to from solid rocket boosters, um, and it accelerates smoothly off the pad. It's a lot quieter inside than you would think. You'd think looking at all these flames and rockets that it ought to be really noisy and stuff, but you just don't notice it. There's a dull roar back there, but it's not as bad. And as the rocket starts to climb, of course, you're burning fuel, and so the acceleration increases, and you get pushed back into the seats with more and more force. At about 2 minutes, there's some boosters that are strapped on, and they burn out and fall away. And it's a very subtle change. You feel a little drop off in the acceleration forces. The big change comes at about 5 minutes when the first, they call it stage two or second stage, but it's really the first main rocket body. When it burns out and separates for momentarily, you're weightless. All of a sudden, this force, and I don't remember the exact number. It's about 3 Gs, is pushing on you, and then very abruptly, that force stops, and you're kind of lurched in the straps, and then stage three, the next rocket kicks in, and boom, pushes you back into the seat, and as you continue on the way. So the whole process just takes, it's about 9 minutes from sitting still, on the steppe of Kazakhstan to being in orbit, and it's all very fast. It takes a little bit longer than the shuttle. It's about 8.5 minutes, and so this is about 9 minutes. And but once they get to orbit, it's still a very busy time because you're busy. I mean, they're still going through some of the vehicle checks and some of the orbit maneuvers that are associated with just starting the whole chase down, of the space station.
Well, talk about that a little bit. Why is that important? I mean, how and why does it take you 2 days to get? caught up to the International Space
Right.
Station?
Well, it's just part of the design, really, on how we just chase it down. We intentionally launch into an orbit that's just a little below the space station, which means we go around the Earth a little faster. So we're literally chasing it down. This morning, as the Soyuz was launching from Kazakhstan, the space station was over South America. And of course that looks wrong because you think that the space station should be coming overhead and we should be going straight to it, but that's just not the way it works. And it by having a difference, it just allows us to kind of methodically maneuver and join up to. And so we launched into an orbit that's just a little under the space station, so we're going a little faster, and so we'll be chasing it down. And docking takes place just about 50 hours after launch. So we'll be docking, Central Time. It'll be about 9:15 or so Friday morning for the actual docking.
Well, that sounds very exciting. And so, also just something else, so you launch on the Soyuz, but also while you were there aboard the International Space Station, serving as the commander, you actually watched a launch as well. So tell me, what is that experience to knowing that, hey, the rest of my crew's coming, and what is that like?
Well, we had some delay in that. There was some, a little bit of space drama going on for us when the Russian Progress cargo ship did not reach orbit in August. They had a malfunction and it went down. And that rocket is basically the same rocket that carries humans up on the Soyuz spacecraft. And so that changed things. The Ron Guerin, Sasha and Andre, they extended their stay by just a little bit, and when it was time for them to come home, then we just had a crew of three for a couple of months, and where Dan, Anton, and Anatoly were originally scheduled to be up there, um, 2 months ago, just a very short gap, and instead we had a longer time with just three people. So it was really busy. The space station takes a certain amount of care and feeding, and we were working hard to keep up with the science program and keep everything on track as
With just
best
the
we could.
three and not the six that you
We were
originally were going to
shorthanded,
be having. So
absolutely. So it was a very busy time, but we were by then we were fully up to speed because we'd been in space for a few months, so we were ready for that. And it was a challenge getting everything ready for Dan Burbank and his crewmates to arrive, late as if you will, and they arrived really 6 days before we left, and so we had a very short overlap time or handover time. It was really busy. We uh, Dan Burbank and I joke about not sleeping during that time because there was just so much to hand over, so much to talk about. But it was exciting as we were preparing, and we were actually sending down videos to help with the training or the handover uh, of the different things that we do on the space station. Part of it's the normal, just cleaning filters and water samples, and also payload operations and different stuff. So it was really neat when it was finally launch day, as we gathered in the aft end of the U.S. laboratory at a computer screen where they were uplinking, streaming the video up to watch them, and so we're cheering. And of course, that was just wow. That was just 5 weeks ago. It's hard to believe. And they launched in a blizzard. It was unbelievable
yeah, a little
conditions.
different than your conditions since you launch on June 7th in the summer,
We
correct?
launched in the summertime. It was nice. It was a little warm, but it was nice. And I couldn't believe what the conditions were like when they launched. But it was, the today's launch, of course, was beautiful. It was cold, but clear and looked great.
Great. Well, thanks so much for sharing with us. Again, you've been sharing with us since before you left, and you're still sharing with us. But you've been blogging, and so for those of you who want to hear more about Mike Fossum's experience there, he talks about the launch. He also talks about
You
watching the
bet.
launch, waiting for the launch, the delay of the launch. All of those things you can see at his blog titled "Living the Dream," where he
There you go.
chronicled his spaceflight experience, and you can get to that at www.nasa.gov, or I'm sorry, blogs.nasa.gov.
Okay.
Thanks again for coming to talk with us. And again, it is a very exciting time, and it's nice to be able to see that excitement. And how are you feeling now, being back? I mean, just only a month.
Oh, I
How's
I
Earth
I
treating
feel
you?
great. It's we go right now going through medical testing. To a lot of a lot of the science that we do involves us actually serving as the guinea pig for different muscle and bone studies. And so going through that and rehabilitation.
Very interesting. So I guess we can still follow you because you have been tweeting. So perhaps you'll share some of those experiences as well of how he gets adjusted back to Earth.
You bet.
And that is on www.twitter.com/astro_Aggie. Thanks again for coming, Mike.
You bet. Thanks, Amico.
Thank
Good to
you.
be here.
And happy holidays to you and yours.
You too. And thanks for everybody for watching NASA TV. It's a great time in the space program here, where we've got the next crew heading up to the space station to get back up to a full crew of 6. And we're cheering them and supporting them as best we can from here in Houston and around the globe. Thanks for joining in.